Konami's Green Beret has absolutely nothing to do with the infamously bad John Wayne movie, though I suspect the existence of the film is why it became known as Russian Attack in the US. For those unfamiliar with the term, Green Berets is the nickname for the US Army Special Forces, and it's one of those things where anyone you meet who says they were a Green Beret probably wasn't. Konami's Green Beret started out as an arcade game, and one that was specifically targeted at the US market. The US got the arcade version ahead of Japan, and the Disk System and NES ports were released simultaneously. The plot of the game is that you are Steve, a lone commando who parachutes into the USSR with just a knife, and has to take out the enemy's secret weapon, which is a missile. Somehow this will restore peace and not cause World War III. There's also a two-player mode where the second player is Ben, and I can't help but notice that neither of these guys have a Green Beret. As you play, pressing B stabs with your knife, pressing A will use a special weapon if you have one, and you have to press up to jump. Now normally that would be pretty annoying, and actually it still kind of is. But Green Beret is very clearly modeled on Irem's Spartan X, or Kung Fu Master. You're not really doing any platforming here, so there isn't really a call for a lot of jumping. Mainly you use it to hit a few enemies that get above you. Of course, you are more likely to use the jump than the special weapon option. Your goal on all 6 stages, 2 more than the arcade, is to get to the far right. And as you move from right to left, a continuous stream of enemies will appear and try to run you down. Any contact with something is instantly fatal, but you respawn at the left-hand side of the screen and can keep going. You get 3 lives, and you have 3 continues. And you're going to wind up back at the start a lot. The difficulty curve in Green Beret is pretty sharp. While any given instant of the game isn't too bad, you have to play perfectly for an extended period. And unless you have the enemy placements memorized, it's just a matter of time until you get pinched, or mistime a swing, or take one step too far, and then you're down a life. Fortunately, the enemies are color-coded, so you can easily tell which ones are just going to charge you, and which ones will do a jump attack, and the easiest way to deal with them is to just stand still. They jump at exactly the right point that you can stab them without getting hurt. There's also yellow enemies with guns that will chase you up and down ladders, and when you reach the end of a stage, you'll face a swarm of enemies that can sometimes include special troops like people with rocket packs, or guys with helicopters, which really seems kind of similar to the rocket packs. The most important enemy that you'll face are the yellow enemies who start out laying on the ground. When you approach, they'll stand up and run at you, and if you defeat them, they'll drop an item. Usually it's one of the special weapons, but there's more than that. For the missile launcher and grenades, you get 1 when you pick up that item, but if you pick up an additional 1, then it adds to your stock. On the other hand, if you have a missile launcher and pick up a grenade, or vice versa, then you just swap. There's enough special weapon drops that you really should just use the items. For the most part, there isn't a special opportunity that makes it worth hanging on to them. The rocket launcher fires a missile straight ahead that goes through anything, and the grenade lobs a bomb that destroys everything in a range around it. These weapons are capable of destroying landmines, and sometimes when you destroy landmines, you'll find a ladder going down to a bonus area. These bonus areas are completely empty, and when you take a ladder back up from them, it'll drop you off at a random point in the stage, possibly even before you went down. The reason why you might want to descend into them is because the enemies down there are usually a bit easier to deal with. The yellow enemies can also drop a handgun, and unlike the missile launcher and grenades, the handgun lasts for a period of time, so you can keep running and firing as many times as you like. The last thing that they can drop is a star, and that makes you invincible for a short period. If you're having trouble progressing, there is a cheat code. If you press and hold A and B as well as down on controller 2, holding the D-pad in different directions on controller 1 and pressing start will take you to a different stage. Though you can't access the 6th and final stage like this. Only from what I could find, people liked the game in Japan, though an awful lot of them made fun of the fact that landmines are out in the open. I'm not sure why that detail caught so much attention, but it did. My feeling on Green Beret is that it's lesser Konami, but lesser Konami is still better than 95% of everything else. This is a good-looking game, it sounds good, but I didn't think the action was especially great. Your knife stabs are just a bit too limited, and you're just poking the exact same guy hundreds of times. While the background may change, there really isn't a whole lot of variation in how you're playing. New challenges on stages tend to be things like, now there's sniper towers for a short distance. Or there's a third tier and you have to choose which tier you want to run across. Green Beret is not bad, it's just not a game I'm going to be reaching for especially often.